one word about the Real Estate Board Awards. It really just means I told the story. That's the large type. Director Chen, honored professors and guests, parents and incipient graduates. I am honored, delighted, and frankly astounded to speak to you today. As my dear said, I'm not a practicing engineer. Had I been, I really probably would have been a very lousy one. I wasn't even an exemplary electrical engineering student. And when I graduated in EE 41 years ago, the only job interview I was offered was at the Chicago Bridge Works. You may know that bridge and lower the bridges. The river runs through Chicago, and I assumed that job was as a troll, because I couldn't figure anything else that they wanted. So I left Cornell and went to Columbia, got an MBA in finance. Then I worked for the Uris Buildings Corporation. You may recognize the name from Uris Hall. It was given by Harold Uris, a Cornell engineer. And the Business School at Columbia, given by Percy Uris, a Columbia engineer. I showed up 41 years ago to pick up my diploma personally, as you all will. The reason I did was I had so many campus parking tickets that if I waited for the diploma to be mailed, I'd still be waiting. And I just couldn't afford to pay them all off. There were that many. And when I had my diploma safely in hand, only then did I hear that the faculty had a betting pool as to whether or not I would graduate. It was kind of touch and go right to the end. I knew I was taking water, but I finally made it to port. And hopefully to confound the guys who bet against me. So over my career, I have worked with partners to develop hotels, office buildings. We've developed projects for clients in various cities. We've negotiated commercial transactions and leases around the world. And I am here to tell you that even though I am stumped by complex electrical systems like a doorbell, or as my wife says, screwing in a light bulb, which she wishes I could master fervently. The training you got, which is a light year ahead of the training I got, nonetheless, the training I got has served me well and unfailingly ever since. So, brevity is power, and in the brief time I have left for my remarks, before tomatoes start flying in this direction, what I intend to point out are a few of the changes I see that have taken place in the last 41 years, and a few of the ways that the training I got here have served me well and will serve all of you well. The first change, it is so stark, it is that the faculty, the school itself, seems to be, to pursue an interest and project a feeling of commonality of interest with the students in their success. That makes for much better alumni relations and not to mention much more lucrative alumni relations. When I showed up, the speech on day one was shake hands with the fellow on your left, shake hands with the fellow on your right. 4 years hence, one of the three of you will be here to graduate. That's a zero-sum game. 1 in 3 students would win, 2 in 3 would lose. But I think that the real loser was the university. Any enterprise that casts off 2/3 of the people it admits based on ability to complete is wasteful. I have a whole bunch of adjectives here, but it is just not a good strategy. Myopic, And it fails in the fundamental relationship that I feel must exist between the institution and its component parts. Now, I'm told 94% of the people who start in engineering make it through. One professor told me that he tries to teach and to treat his students like clients. Now, I have a bunch of clients, and I always say to the people who work for me, the next time I do a company, no clients. Clients are and in fact, I have a whole bunch of jokes about clients and lawyers, and clients and roosters. I'm not going to tell them now. I would be, the tomatoes would come from this side of the stage. Second, things are so much more collaborative today here. I've seen the results that some of the teams have produced. It is astounding. I understand that people are encouraged to work together for a common goal, a common good. Motivating a leadership style it is that I think it's fair to say is pulling instead of pushing. Motivating for the greater good instead of out of fear. There was a movie in my day called Mutiny on the Bounty, where a fellow named Captain Bligh said, rhetorically, why will a man climb that mast in a raging gale? The answer is because he's scared to death of me. As you may or may not know, didn't work out so well for Captain Bligh. Not for nothing was the movie and the book entitled Mutiny on the Bounty. And in my experience, there was never much limit to what could be learned in a supportive environment, which certainly today versus 30, 40 years ago is extremely supportive and something that I feel some pride in for Cornell. It's a wonderful, wonderful change. What I've taken to heart in business over a long period of time is to lead by pulling rather than pushing. Lead by motivating people, treating them with respect, treating them like they're intelligent, and they will bust their tails to justify that treatment, that trust, that confidence. It's a wonderful thing to see when someone comes to work for me and I treat them as if they are indeed intelligent, motivated, and sensible. There's nothing they won't do to actually perform that way. The third change I see is ECE and the college at large are so much more diverse than, in all respects, than they all were when I was here. I think it's positive because it's more like the world at large that you're going to go into, most of you. It's much less insular while you're here. It's a broader experience than we all had decades ago. It draws presumably on a much deeper pool of talent. And in terms of gender diversity, it's certainly easier to get dates. And in fact, when I was here, one gender was all the way at the top of the hill. The other gender was all the way at the bottom of the hill. If them as was on the bottom wanted to have a date, you had to walk all the way up. That was depressing. The next, the penultimate thing that I would mention in terms of changes is the food. Actually, it makes such a big difference. It's like from a different cosmos today than when I was here. In 1971 and the 4 years before, Cornell food, not to put too fine a point on it, was used to make spies talk. They couldn't even sell it for the animals in the vet school. finally, this is a happier place. You can just tell. People are walking around here smiling for no good reason. Now, in terms of how getting through, taking on water, but making the port has mattered to me. There are just a couple of points I'll make and then conclude. First, my first partner in development was a guy, a Yale English major, who said, the real benefit of an Ivy League education is you lurch from crisis to crisis. You let everything go until the night before, and then you pull it all together, maybe you pull an all-nighter, and you can deliver the next morning. That's the difference. I thought, well, anyway. He had no clue what great training engineering prelims were in exactly the every 2 weeks there's still prelims. Yeah. So with that very first development partnership, I pretty quickly became the indispensable cog that could pull all-nighters and master large amounts of complex information, fast, organize, and present it, and defend it. In my field, which I would characterize more as a trade than a profession, you know, we say in the land of the blind, one eye is king. More aptly, occasionally even a blind squirrel picks up an acorn. The ability to do what you guys have now all come through doing and mastering is priceless. Second, working with numbers has been an absolute godsend for me from the instant I left here. It certainly was at Columbia. I ended up teaching a course, and I was able to spot when people would collaborate in those days. You can't fool a professional. Just a couple of examples of this. In New York City, there is a tower built on top of the Museum of Modern Art. It's a condominium tower, very imaginatively called Museum Tower. It is a very high-end condominium, and my group was responsible for the real estate structuring, negotiating, and working with the chairman of the museum, a fellow named William Paley, who was also chairman of CBS. Paley demanded endless sets of projections. I mean, this was a complicated project. It took the support of Nelson Rockefeller and the opposition of Bella Abzug. These are names you guys never heard of. And it was a complicated thing. Paley demanded printouts of every single permutation. And this was before Excel and 1, 2, 3. So I would work night after night on the computer terminal that we had leased on two things. One, I would print out for Paley all of the projections he wanted. And second, because they were all worked out by hand, but printed by computer, I had to have a program where we could, in effect, bogus up the numbers we all had to work out by hand. It's a little abstruse, and I apologize for that. But we had to not only deliver the goods, but be good enough to do them the old way by hand and present them the new way. Second, when we do projections in a deal, for very large deals in particular, I insist that all of my people do their own projections. And usually, when we're across from a big landlord or a big developer or a big anybody, they have people to do projections for them. So we sit across from people who are relying on a lot of other guys, sitting someplace